All books are valuable and shouldn't be burnt or destroyed. But I would actually challenge this. People who've been doing jiu-jitsu for quite a while understand two things. There is no better martial art, particularly grappling martial art, that prepares you for Oxford Street more than jiu-jitsu. The second point is that everyone that has trained for a while understands that the success of overcoming plateaus and ensuring you're developing skill constantly, even if you've been doing it for a long time, is to go into your training with intentions, or with an intention. That is, whenever you're doing positional sparring or open rolling, or if you're at an ecological gym playing games, you need intentions to guide your actions, to help facilitate changing of behaviors, breaking of old habits, and creation of new habits and adaptations which improve your ability to perform at this sport. To have an intention means you've come up with some language which describes what it is you would like to do, or perhaps what you would like not to do when you're rolling next in the gym. The purpose of this video is to show that some intentions are better than others, and there are a couple of pitfalls I'd like to help you avoid when coming up with intentions for your own training. This also applies if you're a coach who's coming up with intentions for games, or just intentions that you're giving to your students to help them overcome plateaus or help them avoid making mistakes that you feel that they're making. The first mistake I see regularly occurring when people are coming up with intentions is that they use language like prevent or deny the other person from doing whatever they're trying to do. I'll give you an example. If we're playing a passing and guard play game, if you tell the passer that your goal for this is to get outside of the legs, make sure the feet are pointing away from you, and make some connection to the upper body or torso of your opponent, and that means that you've won the game. And then to define the guard player's perspective and goal, you say to deny the person the ability to do those things from the top. What you're doing is you're making it very unclear exactly how one should move one's body to achieve this goal. Notice that it's dependent entirely on the goal of the other person, and to prevent that is not so clear. It might be clear if you've been doing the sport for a while, and I think that's why we use language like this as coaches. But in terms of being able to organize your own movements around the idea of preventing or denying someone else from doing something is a little bit arbitrary. It's a little bit difficult. To have successfully denied it just means that they're not achieving their goal. And I only get information about how well I did that when they manage to achieve their goal. So they connect to my upper body or my torso, and I'm supposed to make sense of what I did wrong in order to enable that. Consider someone who is quite new to jiu-jitsu. For them, it's not obvious why a lot of the games we are playing and the intentions we give are useful for the purposes of getting better at the sport, or achieving the ultimate goal of the sport, which is getting to a point of submission where you make your opponent tap. It's really not clear all the time why these things get us to that place. And if your goal is simply to deny someone their goal, I think this does nothing to help bridge that gap. I'll give an example of what would be a better intention. If as the coach, or again, imagine you're coming up with your own intentions to improve your guard retention. If as the coach I say, well, what you should try to do is keep your feet or your hips and legs or knees pointed at your opponent. Notice how this would describe the kind of behaviors we'd expect from a seasoned grappler in terms of maintaining good open guard defense against a partner who's doing a lot of side-to-side outside passing. Now, in order to achieve this, one has to deny the goals, one is inherently denying the goals of the other person, because to have my feet facing the person, to have my knees in front of them, is to prevent them. It achieves the prevention of them getting around my feet or having the feet point away. The second problem I see very commonly when coaches are defining intentions for games is they will say that you are not to do a certain thing. You are not to perform a certain action. I can think of no more classic example of this than when a coach is trying to play a game with their students, and the goal for the guard player is to develop a sensitivity for knee-elbow connection, and you want to facilitate lots of high legs and using your feet and legs to recover your guard in place of the dreaded hip escape, where they plant their foot on the ground and they push their hips out, and in doing so, they lose that connection between their knees and their elbows, their torso opens up, and any decent grappler will immediately capitalize on this and pass the guard. I see this so regularly in beginners. I think we all do. And I think it's probably the fault of the coach when they give these intentions. Or it's the fault of the student in the case where they've gone, well, I can see that other people are not putting their foot on the ground. They're keeping them up, so to speak. So I need to have the intention of do not put your foot on the ground. The problem with saying do not put your foot on the ground, even if that's desirable, is it doesn't limit the scope very well of what you should be doing. It just says don't do this, but it doesn't help narrow where our focus should be. The reason it doesn't narrow it is think of all of the behaviors that are still possible which are not the doing of that thing. And I'll give an example of this. If I said to you, do not think of elephants, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is to think of elephants, but I give you no clear indication of what you should think about in place of it, so as to achieve the function of not thinking about elephants. An example of a way in which I might achieve you not thinking about elephants is if I said, think about the time that when you got your blue belt, you cried and you said, this is the second most important day of your life. A better intention that one could give to the student who is hip escaping and making this mistake that we see so commonly, a better intention would be to say, you're only allowed to put your feet on your opponent. Notice that achieves the function of preventing them putting their feet on the ground. This scope of movements available to you excludes putting feet on the ground, and they know that. They can sense that if they were to do it during the roll, because they have a clear intention of I should have only put it on my opponent. And notice, this also achieves the function that we really are hunting for, and that is correcting your position by way of connecting to your opponent. Connecting to your opponent gives you the ability to attack or better defend than a foot placed on the ground, while ultimately achieving this positional correction and getting your feet back in front of them for the purposes of defending with your guard. The next time you go onto the mats, I ask you, for your own sake, to think of how well your intentions have been construed. How well does the language serve you to help you find better solutions to the problems that you're encountering? How well do they help you to overcome bad habits that you've not yet been able to deal with? And how well do they help move you out of plateaus that perhaps you've been in for a little while? I've provided some solutions that I think will help, but they're not all-encompassing. It doesn't offer much in terms of exactly what the intentions should be. So I encourage you to go and explore and try different things. Try to use language that fits within these constraints that I've described today and see how you go with that.